Now, I said I'd get back to ICOs, initial coin offerings, and here we go. So here's a graph I found on the internet from Cointelegraph showing the number of ICOs in 2017 and 2018 and the total amount of capital raised. And you can see, so the total number of ICOs is more than 280 in a month by the end of 2018. And the total amount of cash raised is in the billions of dollars. This is not a little tiny industry. This is not a little tiny idea. This is a lot of money changing hands and a lot of scams going on and a lot of questionable investments. So pulling up the list of the top 50 ICOs so far in the history of mankind, here's the top 12. The biggest one listed here was $257 million for a token called Filecoin. All the way down to number 12, Gnosis raised $63 million. And I do want to point out that these are all startups. These are all companies that when they did their ICO, at best had a little bit of seed money, but this was their equivalent of their Series A. And so if you're a startup investor like me, imagine a $257 million Series A, or imagine a $63 million Series A at that. Brand new company and whatnot. Let's see what these companies do. So Filecoin, that was back in 2017. They raised $257 million before they had a product. They still don't have a product. So we'll just leave that one hanging. Number 2, Tezos, $232 million. If you go to their website, they have a developer portal with some APIs, but it's unclear exactly what it does. Number 3 on there was $157 million raised by a company before they had their product. Currently, they have a product out now. It's a smartphone with some features that do some cryptocurrency stuff. And you can use your tokens to buy that smartphone. That is what the tokens are for. As I said earlier, the tokens are supposed to be to buy the service. That $257 million worth of Filecoins, that's a token that's used to store data out in a distributed manner if it ever gets launched. Anyway, moving on, we get to number 4, Bancor. It's a crypto exchange. Then we get to a company that makes a messenger app and a browser with some crypto features into it. And then another crypto exchange. And then another that hasn't launched. And then another crypto wallet. And then just a coin. Just another altcoin that doesn't seem to do much of anything novel. But people bought $70 million worth of it before it existed. Or the day it existed. Then we finally get to number 10, which is finally something. 10 and 11 seem to do something novel, which is auctions for digital goods. So number 10 is auctioning things that you could find on the internet in general that are digital. And number 11 is the virtual items from like massively multiplayer games. So I just want to point out at this point that it feels a whole lot like the dot-com bubble and the IPOs back then, except the numbers are way bigger. And again, the norm here is that the ICOs are happening before the product exists, but that the purchasers, this $60 to $200 million worth of purchases, bought 0% equity in the company. Let's just drop down to the bottom of the list of 50 just to see maybe it gets more sane down here. And the answer, in my opinion, is no. We're between 39 and 50 on the list. They're all more than $30 million. And what did people buy into? Well, at least you get down here and this stuff exists. But we have an index fund of crypto assets, of Bitcoin and other altcoins. So they sold $34 million of this index fund on day one. Unclear whether that was before or after it launched. There's a website for trading electricity. Well, that's a digital good. That's kind of interesting. Reminds me of Enron a bit, but maybe that's useful. There's a platform for raising ICOs. So one pattern you see here is it's been learned since the 1800s. If you want to make money in a gold rush, you don't go off and try and pan the gold. You try and sell the pans and the picks and the shovels and the canned goods and the boots and the jeans. So here's just a eat your own dog food. If you want to do an ICO, there's a company that'll do it for you, and they raised money as an ICO. There's a system that lets you trade cryptocurrency off the blockchain, which we thought was needed because the transaction fee spiked for a while, but it turns out we don't really need that. We finally get to one that is looks like an everyday software company. It's a way to create, store, and access invoices, but they've put the invoices on the blockchain. I don't quite understand exactly why you want your invoices to be public, but maybe that's useful. And then we get to the fun stuff. If you want to do some sports gambling, or actually esports gambling, if you want to gamble on people playing video games, there's a gambling site for you, and they did an ICO in order to raise the money to do that. $32 million to do that, just to be clear. Something about IoT that made no sense to me. Some APIs to add smart contracts to some cryptocurrencies. I also didn't quite understand that. There's a site that's kind of like Fiverr, but the rewards are all done in cryptocurrency. So a microtask platform. Then another wallet, then another exchange. And finally, there's a company that's building something that looks a lot like Mint, household financial management. And they raised $31 million without selling a cent of equity. This is the kind of stuff that actually exists. There's, again, thousands of these ICOs out there. These looked a lot less scammy than some of the others I've seen. So I guess those were a lot smaller. So to me, when I see these, I ask the big questions like, well, why on earth are they selling me tokens instead of shares in the first place?